Vast multitudes.
Let your powers collide.
Live from your
Who are you in this vast multitudes?
Well, aloha and welcome to today's presentation of Ancient Oblivion, another episode of our forgotten past, our forgotten history. Today we're going to be focusing on Antarctica and the ice wall, the ice walls of Antarctica. I've got a new theory. It's not really new. It's actually ancient. It's actually ancient information that I believe once used to be common knowledge the world across and across most of time. But what we're going to do is we're going to re-examine our cosmology, and we're going to specifically take a good hard look at what's known as the firmament, the dome, which I believe is a major part of our cosmology, of my own cosmology, my own worldview, my own perspective. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. If it does, sweet. I hope that today we'll cover some things that, will be of value to you, or at least make you scratch your head and think about things. I'd like to get a sound check from the chat, if you don't mind. Before we begin, considering how I just did this whole intro, I thought I was live streaming, but I was not. But anyways, yeah, a sound check would be awesome if you guys could do me a favor and give that to me. We're going to take a look at the dome today. We're going to take a look at its composition. What is the dome made out of? Where does it come from? When it comes to cosmology, oftentimes I've seen that, and I've done this myself, we tend to take things for granted. We just tend to put things out there. For example, people will come up with models and maps, and they will just stick a sun and a moon on there because they see that we have a sun and the moon, but there's not often an explanation for what they're made of, where they come from, how they're created, why are they there, and what accounts for their movement in the heavens above us. So we're going to take a look at all these things. Hey, thanks for letting me know that it sounds okay. I hope it does. We'll find out, but at least you can hear me. Thanks everybody. Now, we're going to take a good hard look at the ice walls. We're going to look at the dome, and I'm going to show you a part of the Earth that you might not have considered before. And I believe it's going to play a major role in impacting the way some of us think outside of the box when it comes to our world and our cosmology, and especially the path of the luminaries. We're going to revisit the alleged final experiment, and I'm going to give you a theory, my theory, on how it's possible for people to have a 24-hour sun over, quote-unquote, Antarctica. So hopefully it'll make sense by the end. Benjamin says Apex Ice Dome and just gave me 20 bucks in the chat. Hey, check that out. Thanks, Benjamin. High five. All right, cool. Now, before I start things off, the first thing I want to do is I want to share with you guys. I just created a post. I have a post section here on YouTube. I created a very important post for members, and it was all about this. I have switched over to Patreon. YouTube takes almost half of all of your support, and I don't believe that you guys want that to be the way that it is, so I switched over to Patreon, like my lunch break and other channels have been doing for some time now. It benefits us and our families much better. So this is my new Patreon. A lot of people are already signing up. I've got these different tiers. I did keep I actually lowered the price for your basic YouTube membership down to $1, just the Good Vibe Tribe tier. That way you guys can keep your emojis and your loyalty badges and unlock all of the members only videos and stuff for just $1. But over here on Patreon is everything else. And I'll give you guys a quick glimpse of that. I also want to point this out. There is a chat. There are many chats. Check this out. If you click on chats, and you can do this on the mobile version too. I've created 7 different chats. There's the visitor chat. So if we click on that, you don't have to be a member at all. And you can see Kimberly's got a message up there, May, Benjamin. A few people are already saying what's up in the visitor chat. So good to see you guys. Thank you so much. We also have other sections here, the old world, Mandela effects, omens, vintage maps, strange geology, and of course the plasma apocalypse. Now those are for members. Those are for anybody that signs up for any tier on my Patreon. You can jump into those. And the cool thing is not only can you chat and your messages are saved and can be read by others, you can share pictures. So you guys can come here and, for example, if you go to the vintage map section, you can click on that and upload and share with other people your own collection of vintage maps. So that's one cool little extra perk from joining my Patreon over here. And if you want to go to the about section, you can read all about, my Patreon. I've got a little video saying hello to everybody. And the membership section, this is where you can add your name to the credits. So if you scroll down, you can see here's the big name in the credits. So you know how everyone's name used to be small and it would scroll up at the end. I'm changing that to make everyone's name gigantic. Nobody's going to miss your name ever in the credits. And then there's the animated version right here. You can see where it's all animated, your name animated in the credits. It's limited. So this one's limited to 100. This one's limited to, I think 25. And this is a special tier. So I'm starting my own little workshop. It's going to be only 9 seats are available. And it's basically going to be twice a month. And I'm going to have a video conference with whoever signs up so that we can all sit down. I'm going to give a short presentation. We'll do introductions. We'll get to know each other. And, just answer questions on a personal level and discuss things, specifically the plasma apocalypse, but really we'll talk about many different things. And there's just a sort of an elite tier for people that want to do more. I'm going to be adding a Hall of Flame section to my website, and your name will be forever emblazoned on my website as a supporter. So that's my new Patreon. That's the gist of it. Let me say thank you to everybody who's already signed up so far. It looks like Benjamin A. It's Pinecone was number 2 to sign up. Maxime Lamoth. Jim D. What's up? Casey Jacobson was the first one to get his name animated in the credits. Alicia Baines and Katrina. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much for signing up. Pardon me. Now let's get to the heart of the presentation today. So today we're going to be talking about the pillars of the sky, the pillars of heaven, right? We've talked before about pillars that rise up from the earth in the form of plasma columns, right? Ionized gases that release whenever the earth depressurizes. So down here, this is an ancient Hebrew cosmological view of the earth, right? So this would be the earth right down here. And then inside the earth, it's hollow. They call this portion Sheol, right? It's actually sectioned off into different areas and stuff. But this is just a simple, basic concept, right? It's not to scale or anything like that. This represents our world, the earth right here. Okay, this whole bottom portion, right? There's waters beneath the earth, as you can see a little fish underneath the earth right there. And the trees represent the land at the middle right here. But pay particular attention to the sides, right? Above, we have the vault of the heaven. Let's zoom in a bit. So it says water above the vault, and then it says the vault of heaven. The vault is literally the ceiling. It is a physical portion of something above us that we cannot see right now because of optics and how the optics in our world work. However, I believe that every other polarity shift we go through, people can see the dome, specifically the apex of the dome. And they have drawn this in many different drawings throughout antiquity, specifically within the Dark Ages and the medieval times was probably one of the most recent times that the firmament was actually seen. And it's held up, according to tradition, by great mountains. This is what we're going to be paying attention to now, right? So you have to imagine this entire picture right here is actually three-dimensional. So this is a two-dimensional picture, just a little flat slice. But if we were to look down upon this, it would be circular, which means that these giant lofty mountains on either side, notice how they slope outward, going all the way up to the side? These would be the edges of the Earth, the outermost edges on a circular disk or an azimuthal equidistant map of the Earth. And this is what we're going to be paying attention to. The pillars of the sky. Let me go ahead and zoom into this one more time. There, you can see it right there. All the way off to the edges of the Earth. Now, this would be a container. This would be what holds in the waters of the Earth, the oceans and everything, right? Don't worry about what exists outside of it. We're not going to pay attention to that at the moment, although I believe that's very much important. And I do discuss that when I talk about my concept known as the fractalverse, right, which is the greater world beyond our world. So right now, we're just taking a look at our local world, which includes the dome, the ice dome, and the pillars of the sky that surround our world. And those are going to be our areas of focus at the moment. Let's take a look at some more different ancient cosmological views of the world. This one right here is more of a Mesopotamian view, right? You can see Uruk in the middle. And off to the sides, you can see they also have their own version of like a dome going over the world and the same pillars of the heavens. Now, these are different than the pillars of the Earth. The pillars of the Earth are columns within the Earth on the inner portions of the Earth, right? There's also the surface pillars of the Earth, which are those plasma columns that look like they're holding the sky up. So it can be confusing when you're starting to dive into these different ideas about earth pillars, okay? But there's three main types. There's the pillars of the heavens, which are physical portions of the earth, which bow upwards and actually are a part of and connected to the ice dome or the firmament. Then you have your earth pillars, which are inside or down in Sheol. They're the columns of the underworld, right? And then you have your plasma trees. Sometimes they're described as trees. They're plasma pillars and columns and stuff that rise up as ionized gases rise up through the earth and escape through volcanoes and cave systems and stuff. So those would be pillars of light that look like they're holding up the sky. Here's another one that I like. This is also a Hebrew cosmology, just drawn a little differently, but as you can see, they have Sheol, the inner world. They have the pillars of the earth down here underneath, the fountains of the deep, because the earth is full of water. And then off to the sides, as you can see here, even behind me, right, they have those pillars of the heavens, essentially creating a bowl, a crater, which is the world that we live in. Or would be, according to these models. If these models have any veracity to them, if they have any truth at all to them, then the implication is the physical portion of our world, although, you know, it's a plane in general, it's sort of a plane shape on the surface up here, and in its entirety, it's sort of like a dandelion or a mushroom or a flower or something if you include the dome itself, which I do, which is a part of the earth. So we've got the dome as the top portion of our local world, and then we have the surface portion on the inside. Between the surface and the sky, there is space. I'm going to come back to space and concepts like gravity and stuff later, and I'll explain those to you, and I'll explain an alternative version of those to you as well. But then off to the side, you can see over here, foundations of the heavens. Let me see if I can get it in here a little bit. You see that? This huge, gigantic mountain that curves upward and touches the firmament, and it says foundation of heaven. The foundation of the heavens. There's one on the other side as well. Now, if there's it's right behind me. You see that? If there's one on one side and one on the other side, and we're looking at a two-dimensional model, what that implies is that it wraps all the way around 360 degrees, right? They're just showing you a slice of it so that we can see into this world and get an idea. All right, cool. Here's another version, the ancient Israelite cosmology. Let me just check the chat just to make sure everything's okay. I just want to make sure everything's good. It looks good. Okay, I don't see anybody freaking out like the video's messing up. All right, cool. Let's get back to the presentation. All right, boom. Let's see, where were we? We were here, the ancient Israelite cosmology of the world. And we've got the realm of God above. So this would be like the fractal verse and all the multiple worlds beyond. And then we have waters above. Now I'm going to do another presentation on the waters above. I'm actually going to do a whole presentation on the creation event in the first book of Genesis. So I've got my own theories about how that stuff is described and what it's actually describing, because the way it was written in the original Hebrew, or possibly even Paleo-Hebrew or Phoenician, is much different than I've found than it's actually been translated. But we have the rakia. Rakia means hammered out and spread out. So it's substance. It implies a substance that has become hard, right? So this is how the firmament has been described over many different years, is a hard substance, but not just a hard substance, but a substance that has become hard or hardened, right? Spread out as if it was liquid form, and then hardened, right? So sometimes people equate that to liquid metal, and they'll describe the dome as being metallic. Sometimes they'll describe it as maybe molten rock or lava that has hardened and become rock, and therefore the sky is made of rock. That's probably a lot closer to what I found when studying Native American traditions and oral traditions and histories that are passed down through the Native American tribes. Oftentimes they describe the sky, the firmament itself, as being made of some kind of stone, right? But in reality, that word that they use for stone means something that has become hardened, right? Now, we've got waters above. This is going to play a key role as to why I believe that the dome is actually made out of ice. But as you can see, we also have these mountains off to the side that support or hold the dome itself. Let's take a look at another example here. This is from Egypt. So this is the ancient Egyptian cosmological view, or one of the many different versions of it. But as you can see, we've got Nut up here, which is the dome. Nut is the sky goddess. Sometimes it's a female, sometimes it's not. But she represents the dome. And they put the stars in the dome. Okay? Her breast right here would basically be the equivalent of what I call the apex dome, which droops down in the middle, which is like the all-seeing eye or some otherworldly planet whenever it's illuminated that people think is getting too close to the Earth. And then we have Geb. So Geb's down here in the middle. Shu, this character that seems to be doing the Atlas pose in the middle, that's the blue beam that shoots up out of the middle of Mount Meru at the center of the world at the North Pole, which is Hyperborea, and which is the Garden of Eden, and which is Jerusalem, and which is Mount Zion. In the Bible, actually, they have a Mount Zion. I'm going to get a little off topic for a second, okay? I don't believe that modern-day Jerusalem or Israel is the original land of Israel, or the Holy Land, okay? That's not a holy land at all, from my perspective. Mount Zion is said to be in the extreme north. You might have heard the Bible refer to this as the sides of the north. That's what I'm talking about when I refer to strange translations of the Hebrew. Hey, what's up, Phil? 1476, high five, good to see you. So it's been translated into English as Mount Zion, or Sion, however you want to pronounce it, located at the sides of the north. That's a poor translation. It really should say the extreme north is how that really should be read. Zion is in the extreme north, which is at the North Pole, which is Hyperborea, okay? And it's a mountain. It's a high and lofty mountain. It's a wonderful mountain. It's so huge. It's magnificent and magnanimous. It's amazing to behold. Mount Zion, as it's been renamed in honor of that original place over in Jerusalem, is no mountain. Hey, what's up, Skywatcher? Good to see you. High five. Yeah, Mount Zion is no mountain, okay? Just like none of those mountains in Italy that they say are the 7 mountains in the book of Revelation. Those are hills, man. Those are like feet, okay? Those are small. And they try to make them sound bigger by telling you how high up they are from sea level. Like, you know, your city is higher up than the sea level is. So trust me, those mountains are no mountains whatsoever. All right, let's get back to the dome. I'll probably do another presentation about all that stuff. So anyways, here's Geb, right? Geb represents the earth. Now, Geb oftentimes is portrayed as actually laying down on Geb's side, and his arm extends upward towards the feet of Nut over here on the side, and then his feet sort of act as the other mountain that curves upward. I might have another picture of Nut and Geb. Here's another map that I really like. This one's more of a modern map. This one is called a map of the square and stationary Earth. I love this map, right? I didn't when I first saw it. I thought it looked ridiculous a long time ago, maybe a couple decades ago. I thought it was just the strangest things I've ever seen. But the more I study cosmology and the more I look into our ancient Oblivion, the more I see the truth in these things. Now, as many of us have come to the conclusion, and we've heard time and time again, water usually retains its level, usually stays at a level position, especially when it's still, right? There's exceptions to that, like cymatics. You can, use frequencies and stuff to manipulate the shape of water or whatever. But in general, it lays flat, okay? In general. So this bowl shape of the Earth, I dig that, but it's just, I feel like it needs some tweaking, it needs some fine tuning, okay? Because if it is bowl shaped and it's full of water, the water naturally would come to a level across it and all the continents would be underwater. So the way it's drawn here probably could use a little fine tuning. But what I do like about this map is the edges. So notice how at the extremity of the world, it bows upward, it slopes upward, it curves upward. And up here, the reason it looks jagged is because that's ice. This, you can see it says Antarctica. You see that all the way across? Antarctic. And then they even have like some of the lands of Antarctica written up here around the edges. So if this portion of this little model, this little map or idea of the shape of the world, if that particular portion holds true, and it follows the ancient Hebrew cosmology and the Mesopotamian cosmology of having our world being within a crater, essentially. And at the extremities of the world, closer to the dome itself, it starts to slope upward. Hey, mind's eye, thank you. High five. Then we would naturally see ice over here, especially if we take a look at the luminaries, or specifically the focal point that we call the sun. Right? So here's the sun over here, here's the moon over here. Like I said, take this particular map with a grain of salt. Okay, there are things that resonate with me about it and things that don't. So we're just going to use it as a visual, okay? Sort of to get an initial grounding. So if this sun is a focal point and it's moving around, right? And it's following a circuit, well, there's some implications there. There's some things to consider and to think about. One is it has its movement outward. Right now it's at the Tropic of Capricorn, right? Once it moves inward, it will stop at the other tropic, which is the Tropic of Cancer. So this focal point, as it spins around this world, it also spirals, and it spirals outward, and then it spirals inward, right? When it spirals outward, it's summertime out here towards Antarctica. Mind's eye, thank you, high five. When it spirals inward, it's summertime up here in the quote-unquote northern hemisphere, right? All right, cool. So keep this in mind. Now, I want to explain the quote-unquote sun. How is this created in our world, right? This is a little focal point. Bifocal, get it? Bifocal point, what I mean is same thing that you create whenever you take a magnifying glass and you try to burn something. The reason that you get that little dot of heat is that's all of the light that passes through the lens of the magnifying glass meeting at one point. That's called the focal point. And that point becomes extremely hot. That is the focal point from the magnifying glass or the lens of our world, which is the dome, which is also said to be compared to glass. Now, if it's made out of ice that's crystal clear without any impurities, then it will act as a glass or a glass type structure. Ice is also hardened water, right? But it's not just hardened water. It can also be hardened gas, believe it or not. So if we go, you know what, I don't know. Should I? Yeah, I think I'll just continue down this line of thought because I like this particular map, right? So why is Antarctica freezing cold? On one hand, it's freezing cold because the distance between the tropic where the sun stops right here and the actual edge is pretty far. So the further away from you get from the heat source in this world, which is this focal point, aside from geothermal activity, the colder it will get, right? So there will also be lower and lower pressure. This is crucial to understanding how people can stick to the sides of this slope, right? Because one of the first questions people would naturally ask, and I even asked, is what would keep people from just sliding on down if the world had edges way up and Antarctica actually bowed upwards, right? We'll come back to that one. Let's check out some more things that I've got pulled up here. Now, as far as ancient Greek cosmology goes, let me get this pulled off to the side so we can read it a little easier. All right, so this is a Wikipedia article about ancient Greece cosmological views. They believed in a solid sky, which is the firmament, and they also believed that there were high ridges at the rim of the earth. You see that? High ridges at the rim of the earth. These are the same high ridges that we have examined initially. They're called the pillars of the sky, right? And let's go back or continue that same line of reasoning and that same, thought experiment, we'll say. Mind's eye. Hey, thank you. Oh my God. I super appreciate you. That really helps out, honestly. Thank you so much. All right, cool. So here's another view. This is the Sumerian cosmology, right? So if we take a look at Sumeria, ancient Sumeria, they also had a firmament that went up and around. Okay, it's different sections of the firmament too. But here's the firmament up above. As you can see, we live in a valley. These are the mountains of the world. These are the pillars of the heavens that are the outermost edge of our world, if it is indeed some kind of a crater shape. I like to use the word crater. It also means grail. And they also have their underwater area, their hollow earth area, etc. Now, let's continue on. This is ancient Norse. So you may have seen a version of this ancient Norse drawing where they have a tree that grows out of this central mountain. They call that Yggdrasil. And the branches spread out at the top and sort of make a dome shape and go all the way around to the edges, right? Well, this is the same picture without Yggdrasil, the same picture without the actual tree in it. So, and as you can see, they've got the central land area. These would be akin to our continents on a large worldwide scale. And then we have a valley, right, on the inside, and a mountain range surrounding the earth. This is the dome, obviously, right? And this right here is actually Asgard. I'll also have to cover that in another video. That's literally floating land in the sky, like way up in the sky. Up here is not the sun. That's not sunlight at the very top, although it looks like it might be. That's plasma, okay, because the sun is under the dome, not outside of it. Plasma, this is what creates that focal point. Let's go back to that square Earth map. Remember the focal point right here? Now, how is this created? It's created, okay, now let's just do a thought experiment. Let's suppose that that our world is like a snow globe. You've all seen a snow globe, right? Sort of a dome shape of glass, and then the land is at the bottom. Let's use that as a starting point, okay? Now, above that dome shape, the glass portion or the firmament, we have what academics calls the plasmasphere. It is a vortex of plasma that is encompassing the dome, and that plasma, as is its nature, because it's a fluid and because it's electromagnetic, is spinning and it's spiraling. So that light, that plasma, which is physical and light at the same time, is passing over the lens of our world, over the ceiling, over the vault of the heavens, which is like glass. It's actually ice, right? And I'll explain how it's ice in just a minute. But the plasma is spiraling around and over the dome. The light from the plasma continues on and passes through the lens, which it's now a lens. Once you pass light through it, it's officially a lens. Because of the shape of the dome, in general, there's different portions to it that give off different shapes, but in general, it's an upside down bowl shape. Because of that shape, the light will refract and bow inwards and curve inward at an angle. And where all those light rays meet, you get this, which is a point of focus. Okay, so that's how the sun is created. That's the luminary of the sun. As I see it, within this alternative cosmological view that incorporates the dome, which I feel is extremely important, if not even maybe more important than the shape of the actual land that we live on. Because, we look to the skies for the apocalypse, right? Mind's Eye, what's up, Mind's Eye? High five. You get a lot of shout outs today. All right, cool. Now, that is that particular luminary, the point of focus known as the sun, right? Now, there's this, as I go, there should be a lot of questions that are popping up into your head. Well, how does it explain this? Well, how does it explain that? That's good. I encourage you guys to have those types of questions, not doubtfully or sarcastically or patronizingly, but genuinely asking if that's true. Let's suppose, as a thought experiment, what would be the implications, or how could that particular thing be created? Now let's focus on the dome itself, aka Antarctica. Okay, Mind's Eye just gave out 10 JayDreamerZ memberships in the chat. Mind's Eye is in a very giving mood today. So congratulations to all these people. The names that you're about to see pop up. Everybody just got a channel membership to the Good Vibe Tribe. You guys can all unlock the members only videos. You can play with the new emojis in the chat and stuff. So thank you again, Mind's Eye. All right, let's continue on with the presentation over here. So this is the Norse version. Like I said, this is the floating city. This is the firmament. Up here is the plasma outside of the dome that hits the dome, comes through it, and creates this, what we call the sun, okay? But as you can see over here to the sides, right? Our land, so let's say that this over here is like South America, and then you've got like the Antarctic Ocean, and then you would have quote unquote Antarctica, where it's starting to get really cold. There's a physical portion of the land, and that land, the physical portion, Antarctica, is, if we correlate that with the ancient cosmological views, it would have to be a portion of the pillars of heaven, or these lofty, huge, gigantic, in elevation mountains that surround our world that start to slope upwards, eventually merging with the ice dome itself, right? Okay, so let's follow me on that. I feel like we're doing pretty good so far. Here's another version. This one has the waters above the firmament. This is from ancient Babylon, or a Babylonian view, also Hebrew, also Arabic and other things too. But as you can see, they have the mountains right there on the sides, on each side actually, right? Okay, so we're seeing a pattern of these mountain range that encircles the edges of a circular world at the surface where we live. Okay, I'm pretty sure there's some more memberships being given out right now. Like, wow, what an honor. You guys, that's so cool. Man, congratulations and thank you, Mind's Eye. You guys are amazing. All right, this one right here is Inca. This is an ancient Inca cosmological view of the Earth. Now you can see there's an inner mountain range right here. That would correspond to the North Pole. The North Pole has a smaller version of the larger macrocosm, okay? So comparatively speaking, I'll call the area and the land at the North Pole, which is Hyperborea and the Garden of Eden, a small version of the rest of our world. The small version has the Rephaim mountain range, or the walls of Eden, basically, right? Which I've showed you guys many times. That's up at the North Pole. Much smaller, but on the extremities of our world, we've got the tip of the crater, basically, is how I'll refer to that. Here's another version of it, where you can see in this version, you know, some people try to guess at the diameter of the sun. In this version, they're guessing that it's 27 miles across. They've got the circuit that the sun moves around. Keep the circuit in mind. This is also important and plays a part as to the temperatures, obviously. The closer you are to that area, or the further away you are. So look at the edges here. Antarctica. There's a mountain range that goes around the rim of the world. In this particular drawing, you know what I mean? These are all drawings. These are all people's perspectives that they've drawn out. But you can see how it's all jaggedy and stuff? That's not just because it's ice. It's because it's mountains, right? These are the slopes at the edge of the world. Admiral Byrd. So there's a quote by Admiral Byrd. Let's see if I can scooch this over a little bit. So he says, let me try to do it in my Admiral Byrd voice. There is left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being, and that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole from Little America. That's my Admiral Byrd voice. Now, look past my stupid impression of Admiral Byrd, okay? What he's saying is he went to Antarctica and he saw vast amounts of land that are beyond the pole. Okay, so keep that in mind. Before I get to my drawing and my little model, which is not perfect, but I'll share it with you anyways, I want to talk about Antarctica for a moment. So let me put up a different picture here. I think I like this one is my favorite, actually. I think I like this one the best. Right? I like this one. Hold on, let me scooch it over. All right, cool. Yeah, that's okay. Congratulations to everybody that's getting like mad memberships in the chat right now. That's pretty sweet. All right, cool. So I'll just leave it right here. Pillars of the sky. Okay. Now, like I said, Admiral Byrd talks about Antarctica and how there's this vast land, bigger than the United States, beyond the South Pole. So let's talk about magnetism real quick and the poles. You guys are very familiar, many of you, with the whole concept, of YouTubers, specifically flat Earth YouTubers. Let me just give you a disclaimer. No matter how popular a flat Earth YouTuber is, or any YouTuber, they don't represent all of the beliefs of everybody that has a similar view at all. So please don't thrust them into the spotlight. Don't do that with me. Don't do that with anybody else. There was a couple of very popular flat earthers, or people who were flat earthers, and I'm not slamming on them. I don't want you guys to slam on them either, okay? Because they're just walking their own path, okay? What I want to do is focus on logic and reasoning, and I want you guys to try to follow along with my logic and reasoning and my theories that I'm going to present with you today, or present to you today. Anyways, there was this whole experiment that was done by somebody who was a proponent of the glob model of the Earth, the spinning ball model of the Earth in modern academics, and him and a group of his fellows, they knew that there was a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. And I'll show you how that's possible with this. And he felt like, because the flat Earth community in general, on YouTube specifically, okay, which the whole flat Earth community extends far beyond YouTube and far back into time, okay? It's the majority belief system across time. Right? Just modern academic view of a spinning, wobbling ball Earth, it has been the minority for most of all time. Okay? If everyone across time took a vote, this cosmology would win in a landslide. But anyway, so what this guy did, he was very rich, and I don't really care where he got the money or anything, but he bought plane tickets for two prominent flat earthers who were popular on YouTube specifically, and he paid to fly them to Antarctica. And he said, basically, if you see the sun go in a circle around, then the Earth can't be flat. Because let's go back to one of these models here. Let's see, do I have a model? I like these ones better that I've just shared with you. Here we go. We'll use this one. Okay, this one's closer to like the modern flat Earth model or whatever, right? So in the modern flat Earth model, pretend like there are no mountains in Antarctica. It's just all flat, right? And the sun would go, and it would just spiral around. If this is true, no matter if it's summertime or wintertime, you would never have a 24-hour sun in Antarctica if the entire world is just flat and stays flat, right? Due to perspective, sun would go around, it would disappear. It would come back, it would be nighttime, it would be daytime. You wouldn't watch as the sun just goes around in a big fat circle, right? According to that map. So because they did see the sun do this, and modern academics has a model that's, or a theory and a model that explains this, the 24-hour sun, then these, a few flat earthers, defected, or they stopped believing in it, which I respect. That's their decision. I haven't changed my opinion whatsoever. I don't believe that the shape of the land has any bearing whatsoever on the movement of the luminaries, in general, right? But I'm going to show you how that's possible. and how the dome is what creates the luminaries, as I've just shown to you, right? And their path that they take and stuff. But perspective is key when understanding this. I didn't see who that was, but high five to you. Thank you for your support. All right, so anyways, these flat earthers went to Antarctica. They watched the sun, boom, go around, and they're like, oh my God, okay, so the earth is not flat. The map is wrong. This whole, what do you call it, model is wrong, which, by the way, it's not really a model. This right here is a picture. And if anything, it's a map, right? A model would be more three-dimensional. A model would definitely include, or should include, the dome, in my opinion, all right? A better model would include the different portions of the dome, like the apex dome at the top, you know, the underworld and all this other stuff too. But anyways, so let's get to, I'll show you, I'm going to use my model here. I have a drawing that I'll share with you. Let me see if I can get it pulled up in full. There we go. That should work. Now, as you can see, let me give you a disclaimer. None of this is to scale. There's probably problems with this and stuff. This is just a general concept, just as those prior pictures I showed you from ancient history are also general concepts, just so you can, you know, have an image so that it'll jumpstart your imagination and you can, you know, start to put pieces together yourself. So the white portion is the dome, the firmament, right? I just made it white because it's ice or whatever. The brown portion is the earth, as has been depicted in ancient cosmologies. I purposefully made the sides of it stick way up like this to represent the pillars of heaven, or the portion of the earth that is the crater portion, right? It might not even, you know, it might not look like a horn or whatever. Like I said, you know, this could just be flat and it could just totally be a crater or whatever. But this is the area that we're going to focus in on. Okay, so let me make this particular portion a bit bigger so we can understand this. Now, this at the top, this is the apex dome. So I told you how the firmament bows in at the top, and there's massive amounts of proof for the apex dome, especially if you look at drawings from the Dark Age and artwork from the medieval times and stuff. They actually draw the apex dome all the time. This is the sun. So this yellow dot right here, this is the circuit that it goes through. The sun's circuit, it spins around, right? So down here on the ground, we've got the water, right? We've got little continents and mountain ranges and stuff that I've drawn in there. And if you're on the surface or the base of this snow globe type system, right? If you're on the surface, when this circular sun moves away from you, because of perspective, you'll see it look like it's dipping down over the horizon and disappearing or whatever, right? So let's take a look and let's compare this to the quote-unquote final experiment and see how it could be possible on an alternative with an alternative cosmology to see a 24-hour sun, right? So let's say that this point, let me make this even bigger actually. Make this really big here. All right, very good. Hopefully this is good enough. Now, let's say that where my little, let me get a pointer. All right. Boom, pointer. One moment. All right, cool. Here's my pointer. Now, let's say, see where this blue beam is? All right. That represents, see how I have an arrow pointing up? Let's say this is like the southern tropic, the Tropic of Capricorn. So that's the point at which the sun, the luminary, the point of focus, goes its furthest south before it starts to come inward, okay? So if you look straight up, directly underneath that point, the sun would be at the zenith of the sky at midday. Okay, so the sun would be directly above you. Now, if we look at things from an ancient cosmological view and we continue going south, the land will start to slope up. The land will rise in elevation. Now, you might think to yourself naturally, because you imagine gravity, right? And, oh, gravity's pulling everything down, so everything should just fall back down. That's not so. And I'll explain to you scientifically why I believe that's not so, okay? But let's just say it is so for now, that's how the land is shaped, right? If you were able to stand, let me make this even bigger. It's difficult to make these models sometimes because of the sizes we have to make things. Anyways, if you were able to stand, let's say that this horn of the Earth represents Antarctica, okay, which it does. If you were able to stand there, right, and, you know, the ground just felt normal, you were being pulled downward towards the ground, right, and you look straight up, your straight up is different now from the people who are down here on the surface. Your zenith of your sky is this direction, or depending on the slope, you know, the angle of the slope, it could be that direction, you know what I mean? It could be a different direction. But like I said, the model, this little map I drew is not perfect. It's just to jumpstart your brain to different ideas. But let's say we've got Jaren and Witsit and the other guys that went to Antarctica, right? And they look upwards. This would be their view, hypothetically speaking, okay? Now, keep in mind, the people down here in South America, when they look up at summertime and they see the sun at the midpoint in the sky, it is stopped right over here, bam, and it's going to go back around this way. But the perspective is entirely different whenever you're in Antarctica on the sloping portion of the world. And I'll explain a lot of different stuff too, okay? So like they're not going to be able to see the land. All this, like the whole Earth, they're not going to be able to see that. But they will be able to see the sun. They will be able to see the focal point. So when they look up, this is their zenith of their sky. And what they will see in its entirety, or what we should expect to see, is they should see the sun making a circle around their zenith as it actually just goes about its normal path in the sky. Does that make sense? I mean, do you understand the concept? You know what I mean? If I say, does it make sense? I'm not saying, do you agree with that? I'm just saying, does the concept make sense? You know what I mean? As I'm presenting it. You don't have to agree with it. I'm just saying, I hope it makes sense to you. That if somebody is standing over here, and this is Antarctica, which it is, I believe. I completely believe that this is so far, right? They would look up, and this is their sky now, right? It's a completely different sky. They would see a different sky than these people down here, right? They would watch the sun move in a circle around this point, their zenith of their sky, their midday sun, their midday, straight up for them, right? So that's why I drew these little arrows that show this, because that's how the sun looks to them, okay? The sun looks like it's just going in a circle around where they are, all the way around. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So let's answer a few questions that would naturally come to mind. One, why don't people slide down? Like, it's not gravity. I'm not going to say that. I don't believe in gravity. I believe that gravity is modern academics' label that they've put on an observation, which is the opposite of buoyancy. That's it, really. So let's discuss this. How is it that people can, and now we can push this even further, okay? Because if people can stand on the side of the world like that, and they don't slide down or anything, they just stick to it, that also implies that they can walk all the way up, or if they can survive the extremes of the dome, they would be able to walk all the way up, and they would see and encounter a land larger than the United States beyond the South Pole. Once you get down here, everything is the south, okay? Your magnets are going to spin and go crazy, right? But I watched a video where somebody was talking to Jaren. And this is, you know, I don't have anything against Jaren. Like I said, I'm super thankful for all he's contributed throughout the years. But he made this point saying that he's perplexed because if everybody decided to go walk to the South Pole on a globe, they would just meet at the South Pole on the bottom. But at a flat Earth, that wouldn't happen because they'd all go in opposite directions. And one person be over here, one person be over here. And this reconciles that. Because if everyone in the world, remember this map that I've drawn you here, is 360 degrees. It's a round, all right? This is a two-dimensional slice of it, right? But let's say you put people in the middle at the North Pole and told them all to go to the South Pole. They would spread out at first, but they would all eventually get to the pillars of the heavens where they would start walking upwards. And I'll explain how it is they don't slide down in a minute. They would continue walking, as Admiral Byrd said, past the South Pole, over a land that is larger than the United States, right, full of resources or whatever, and then they would end up at the true South Pole, which is this up here. Directly below this would be Mount Meru. I should have probably drawn a little Mount Meru right there, okay? So imagine Mount Meru, the magnetic mountain at the center of the world, which accounts for the North Pole and northern polarity, right? Above so it's the magnetism creates a toroidal field. I should probably draw this. Let me just draw it. Hold on, let me draw this. I could just draw it. All right, let me just draw this real quick. We'll use pink, I guess. All right, just give me 1 second. I'm going to draw this out so I don't have to use my hand. All right, boom. So let's say we got Mount Meru right here. Whip it, pow. There's Mount Meru. All right, cool. Now, the magnetism is going to create like a toroidal field that goes like this, okay? And this is not to scale, okay? So bear with me, right? It's going to create a toroidal field. Boom. So all this on the side is going to wrap all the way around. That will be southern magnetism all the way down behind me here, right? This at the top is the opposite of the north, which means this is the South Pole, the true South Pole. It's just directly opposite of the North Pole, right? This is how it would work on a disc-shaped magnet, okay? Give or take. But this up here is south. This would be, if everyone in the world went outward from the center point, they would travel along the land at first in completely different directions. But if they continued and they did not stop until they got to true south, every single one of them would meet right back here above the North Pole. And they would be upside down to these people down here. Or these people inversely would be upside down to them up here. Now, let me tell you why it is that they could stand upside down at the roof of the world and not fall, right? Because there is no such thing as gravity. Okay, nothing is sucking everything down just towards the Earth. I'll explain how that works right now. Let me get rid of this magnetism deal. Oops. Sorry. I'll leave little pink Mount Meru right there. All right, cool. Now, let's get back to the sides, okay? Actually, let's do this. Let's start with the middle. Let's start with space. Okay, understanding how things can float in space is going to help you to understand how people can stick to the edge of the world and walk all the way up to the roof if they had the right protective equipment or whatever, right? So let's go with space, the concept of space. Now, let me offer to you a different idea, that space is not just going beyond how they portray it, but the space is actually just way high up in the sky, and it's the space between the surface and the apex of the dome, which is right here. Okay, that is space, and that's why it's called space. Space exists between two objects. Everybody should know that, right? It's pretty basic. Now let's talk about pressure and pressure's effect on buoyancy. Okay, now let's say that this world was like a balloon. Right? Just forget all of this. Just imagine a balloon. I blow up a balloon and it becomes a gigantic sphere, and that is our hypothetical world that we're imagining in our minds. Okay? Where does the pressure exist? If you were to look this up, artificial intelligence would tell you that the pressure is equally spread throughout the entire inside of the balloon, but that's not true. If you press it, it will tell you that, well, there's a tiny bit more pressure in the center of that balloon, but it's negligible. Don't believe that negligible stuff. There's no such thing as negligible when you're dealing with things scientifically, okay? It's either different as a pressure gradient or it's not, and it's equal all throughout. It's mathematics, really, right? So what is my point? My point is, if this world is like a balloon, right? And there's air on the inside and it's pressurized because it's a closed system at the center. And I used to believe the opposite of this. At first I was under the impression that all the pressure would actually be around the edges, but I no longer think that. Okay. So now it seems to me that the pressure would exist right in the middle, the most pressure, right? But when we throw in a focal point, which contributes a massive amount of heat, it changes pressure, right? Heat will change pressure in a fluid in a closed system, right? So this focal point is going to manipulate the pressure within this closed system. I'll make it very simple. I'll make it very plain. In the middle, remember, the sun does not exist in the middle. It goes around the middle. Okay? So in the middle, you wouldn't have all that heat from the sun. Okay? In the middle, you would have all that pressure from all the atmosphere that is up in every direction from it in the middle. When you have all that pressure in that fluid, which is the atmosphere in this contained system, the more pressure you have, the more buoyancy you will have, the more buoyant objects will be. Okay? So for example, all that pressure creates density. Okay? So it makes all those gases more dense. When you increase the density of a fluid, it makes it much easier for things to float within that fluid. So as an example, take the Salt Sea, right, over in the Middle East. It's a sea entirely of salt. And one of the big deals is people go there and they're like, oh, look at me, I can just float. Like I can't drown in the salt sea. Your body will just naturally be buoyant. That's because there's so much density. The water has so much salt in it, it's become extremely dense. And therefore, it makes you lightweight in comparison, right? So you can look at this center portion or space right here in the middle as being very pressurized and very dense. There is atmosphere up there, okay? It's not like our atmosphere that's down here and homogenized on the surface or whatever, but they still have a lot of pressure and it creates more density, okay? When you increase the pressure, you increase the density. And because there's increased density, things float. The buoyancy is dramatically increased in quote-unquote space between the ground and the sky. So I hope that particular part makes sense. Now the opposite of that is also true, right? Where do I go from here? I'm trying to build bridges in my mind. Now, this focal point, the sun, it's going to change the pressure. It's going to create pressure systems and weather patterns and stuff like that in our world. There is wind that comes off of it. Okay, so it will move the fluid, this is what we call wind, is the movement of the fluid that we live in called atmosphere. This focal point that heats up will heat up the surrounding atmosphere, and that atmosphere will move from areas of hot to areas of cold, okay? Which creates a wind. This is solar wind, okay? Like, I believe academics, there's some truth to what they say. It's just that they apply it to what I believe is a fantasy world. Now, I'm not saying they're purposefully lying or anything. I just don't think that they have a good grasp on the reality. But anyways, so this wind will leave and it will move in the opposite direction as that the sun is traveling in. So if the sun moves from east to west like that direction, the wind that comes off of it will move that way. This is the jet stream moving in the opposite direction. Now that jet stream exists around the area of the sun, going up and down and everywhere around the sun. Okay, so it's going to create these winds in that area, but there will be an area of calm in the middle space. Okay, right here in the center. Now, the solar winds, the jet stream that's created, displaces the atmosphere. When you displace the atmosphere, it changes the pressure. Okay, so now we have areas of higher pressure and areas of lower pressure, where the furthest away from this is going to be lower pressure. The air is displaced and stuff, and it gets colder and stuff like that, so you have low pressure systems, which creates rain and snow and stuff like that, right? So if we go really far away from the focal points to the extremities of the world, that will be the lowest pressure areas of all. What does that mean? That means that there's such low pressure way out here. Remember, it's going to be the opposite as in the middle. In the middle, there's so much pressure that it creates more density, and therefore objects float. It's the opposite on the outside. There's so low of pressure way out here that the density is lessened, and therefore objects are heavier. And you can look this up, even within academics, they will tell you it's negligible. However, a person that is standing at the equator weighs less than a person who's standing in Antarctica or at the North Pole, they say, okay? So you're heavier in Antarctica, according to modern academics. This is why you're heavier, is because of the pressure differential and, the different gradients that we just talked about, right? All right, so let's focus on Antarctica now. Now that we understand how buoyancy works within quote unquote space, okay? Because there's increased pressure, therefore increased density, therefore objects float, increased buoyancy, okay? Just like the salt sea. Now out here, there is low pressure, right? The air is being displaced. It's constantly moving around, okay? I don't know. I'm trying my best to describe this and in ways that make sense for everybody. So let's say we have our people and they walk up Antarctica, walk up the sides over here. Now what's happening is not that they're being, that this area has such a strong gravitational pull. There is no gravity. What's happening is the fluid that they are in, which is the atmosphere, is now, there's less pressure. There's a low pressure system, right? Extremely low pressure, the further away you get. Because there's less pressure, that equates to less density of those objects. Damn, hold on. I'm trying to keep it together in my mind right now. There's less pressure at the sides, right? Therefore, things weigh more basically, and they sink. Okay? Simply put, they sink down within the fluid or the medium, which is the atmosphere. So this sinking takes them to the bottom, which to them, this is the bottom. That's the bottom. If you're over here, that's the bottom, that's the bottom, that's the bottom. This is all the bottom. It's only comparatively that's up to these who are down here. Okay? But to those who live up here, let's say that there's a civilization that lives at the top of the world, this is down to them. Okay? And they likely, you know, if they have atmosphere the way that we do, they would not be able to see us and we would not be able to see them. And that's due to the opacity of the atmosphere. Okay, so let's discuss that. Let's say we have JayDreamerZ and Austin Whitsitt and stuff. High five to you guys. You know, I don't have any hatred towards those guys just because they changed their belief systems. I'm just proud that I retained my own. Anyways, let's say that they're out here in Antarctica, right? Way off to the side. They're watching their sun on the zenith of their sky. You would assume that they'd be able to just look down and see the continents and stuff, right? But that's not true because as you look in that direction, the atmosphere compounds and compounds and compounds. All the particles in the atmosphere are going to block your view. It's like if you put one hand up and then another hand up and then another hand up, pretty soon you're not going to see anything, okay? It's just going to become more opaque to, you know, it's like opacity. You can turn it, like, let me give you an example. If I take this image right now and I lower the opacity, it starts to become invisible. Right? That's a clear day. So when it's not a clear day and you've got a lot of particulates in the air, then the air becomes more and more solid or difficult to see through because there's so much crap in the air that it compounds together and creates basically a wall that's blocking your sight to see further. So hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, if you're standing over here, you would not be able to see the whole world down here, right? But you would be able to see the focal point as it's moving about way high up in the sky. Like I said, this is not drawn to scale or anything. Now, what else? Let's see. What else was I going to touch on here? Oh, so this is the ice wall. That's the simplicity behind it. Okay. This entire thing is the ice wall. So you don't go like off to the edge on some flat world and there's just like, you know, a 50, 200, 400, 500 foot wall of ice and then it's got like a shelf or a top to it. No. The entire thing is the ice wall, okay? You should be able, theoretically, to walk all the way up to the top of the world, right? Which, by the way, would take you to the moon. This is up here, the apex dome is the moon. It's a true moon. So this is what casts, you know, the luminaries and stuff like that, including the projection we call the moon, which shows you what this looks like. But yeah, you'd be able to just walk to the moon, basically, which is pretty interesting, I think. Let's see, I'm trying to remember if I've covered everything. So let's say JayDreamerZ in this picture, or Jaren as he goes by, boom. He's in Antarctica and he's got the zenith of his sky straight up. But in reality, I can't flip this picture around, but to us, he would be sideways off on the pillars of the heaven. okay, on the parts of the earth that slope so high up. Now remember, that's not altitude. So it's not like they're getting higher and higher up in altitude, so it's just going to get super cold and the air is going to get super thin or whatever. Because the atmosphere distributes around the surface in a similar manner. It only gets colder because it's further away from the sun or from the focal point, okay? But he's sideways right now. Like, that's my theory, okay, is that he is literally sideways. He's not up and down like I am. If I could turn him, I'd rotate him 45 degrees and his head would be facing my head, basically. So he would be looking that way for me, right? And for him, I would be looking a different direction. And that helps to me to explain the 24-hour sun idea. In Antarctica, this is also interesting. So they have one base, allegedly, that's at the exact geographic center or the South Pole. So if we take a look at a map of Antarctica, right, all these little military bases and little study areas and stuff, they're all around the extremities. They're on the coasts. They're on the edges of Antarctica, right? Otherwise, you're going to be setting up camp on the dome, if what I'm saying and my theory that I'm proposing is correct and true. There's only one camp on the dome, right here in the middle. Let's see, can I get to it? Let me see if I can get to it. It's called the Amundsen. Yeah, Amundsen Scott Base, United States. So the United States is trying to claim the apex dome, in my opinion. This is what it kind of looks like here. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, here it is. So this is the center. The Amundsen Scott Base, allegedly at the South Pole. Okay? Now, if that really is at the South Pole, at the exact center, and what I've just presented and, you know, as a theory, has any validity to it, then this is at the top of the world. This is at the apex of the sky, basically, or it would be. Now, is it really? I don't know. I don't think so. You know, it's probably higher up on the slope than the rest of them, which are way down towards the bottom, because the further up you go on the dome, you're not going to have access to, you know, water or stuff like that. Like, you're going to be in survival mode. It'll be way harder to communicate with anybody, you know what I mean? Just as it would on the globe model, you know what I mean? Same thing in my perspective here. But anyways, let's zoom out a little bit so we can see the whole thing. There we go. All right, so here's Antarctica, right? So all this around the edges, this would represent the extremities of that mountain range that wraps around the world. As you start making your way inward, so let's say I start here and I start going this way, I'm comparatively speaking, I'm rising in elevation. I'm really not, because it's just normal to these people. Okay, everything seems normal as you go. You won't feel like you're hiking up a mountain or anything of the sort. Everything will stay feeling normal to you. But in comparison, you are going higher up in the enclosed world that we live in compared to those who live at the base, if that makes sense. All right. I asked ChatGPT, I was having this little conversation. Hold on. Let me get to where I was going here. So regarding air pressure in Antarctica, I said air pressure in Antarctica is lower compared to air pressure at the equator, correct? And it says, yes, that's correct. Air pressure at the surface is lower in Antarctica compared to the equator due to colder temperatures and lower humidity. So I said, does air pressure have any bearing on the weight of an object? And in short, it says, yes. I'm going to skip some of this. So I say hypothetically, and also in real life, let's say that you have a human being that weighs 200 pounds at the equator. Would they actually weigh more in Antarctica? And it says, yes, they would, because of the pressure differential. I said in a closed system, when air is displaced by wind, does pressure drop in that area? Does it remain the same? Does it go up? And it says it drops. Right? When air is displaced by wind, including solar wind, which creates the jet stream, the pressure in that area that it leaves drops, while the pressure in the area that it moves to rises. So this helps to explain the pressure difference in Antarctica less pressure, right? And equals less, damn, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to keep these things in mind. And in Antarctica, there's less pressure, right? Low pressure systems. And when there's high pressure, it creates high density of the fluid. So a low pressure area would create lower density of the fluid or the atmosphere. And because it's a lower density, then objects are more easily sink or would have more weight and they would stick to the land easier, actually. I had to like envision that. Sometimes I gotta like close my eyes and just envision these things because they're often diametrically opposed to what I've learned in academics. Let's see. Whoa, the atmospheric layers. So this also helps to explain the atmospheric layers, right? I asked it which atmospheric layer is the jet stream found in. So now if you start looking at the different atmospheric layers, watch, let's type it in. So this helps to actually explain the different atmospheric layers of the Earth, I believe. Right? So the troposphere down here at the bottom, troposphere, right? It's more homogenized air and stuff. And then you get higher up and higher up, right? Now, be careful when you're studying these things because they'll trick you when they give you the temperature gradients and stuff between these different layers. These different layers will jump in temperatures, and they shouldn't, okay? They should get colder and colder and colder as you go up. But they explain this by saying, oh no, like that it actually is cold. If you took a thermometer with you, it'd be freezing cold. But the particles themselves are extremely hot, thousands of degrees. So it's like they throw in all this unnecessary information. In general, it gets colder as you go up, okay? So keep this in mind, right? You go up, it's going to start, the pressure will start to drop, right? Because you're getting close to the jet stream, and the jet stream displaces the fluid in the atmosphere, creates wind, and wherever there's wind, there's lower pressure, right? Which is what we just learned. So if you have a rocket and you start going upwards and you get close to that jet stream, the temperature will drop. There'll be lower pressure. But once you get beyond the jet stream, or the area where the sun has created that circuit and made that circuit and created therefore the jet stream and stuff too, right? Once you get beyond that, then you'll hit that void, that central part where there's more pressure. Where there's more pressure, it's going to get hotter. So it'll actually get warmer theoretically if you keep going in that model that I was showing you over here. Where is it? This model right here. Remember that? Right? So if you keep on going in this model, you're going to go through different temperatures, right? Because there's a jet stream and there's all that other stuff too, right? So right here in the middle, it should get pretty warm if it's areas of super high pressure. And then you would experience the exact opposite as you went through that. And you passed all the way up to the upside down world above us, and you continued on, right? Now also consider this, in the same manner that we up here have water, they up there should also have water. And in the book of Genesis, it says that there was a firmament, which is the apex dome, that was created that divided the waters from the waters. That's a redundant way. That's another way of saying divided the water from itself. Not divided the water that's down here from the water that's up here. This water up here is divided from itself by this huge mound that sticks out from the firmament, which is the apex dome. So there's waters around here. That's sort of besides the point. Anyways, let me see here. Do I have anything else I wanted to share with you guys? Let's do a recap. And then I'll jump in the chat and see if anybody has any questions, because some of that was pretty deep. I made this fun picture, this thumbnail. Did you guys like this thumbnail I made? Hold on, let me make it smaller. Let's see. So this is something that I like to use AI for, is to help me get visuals for concepts or make models for things and stuff. It can be useful. Anyways, Project Ice Dome, right? So in Antarctica, let me read this to you. Hold on, I'm not even done. I got one more thing I want to share with you. So I'm working on my Apex Dome page on my website right now, and I came across this Native American story about Native American brothers who went beyond the ice dome on the other side, the extremities of the world, Antarctica, essentially. And let me read this to you. This is an Iroquois legend. So this is all of these tribal legends. They're verbal or oral traditions. So they just pass these stories along orally to their children. Okay. So this one comes from the Iroquois nation, and it's about these three brothers who followed the sun, and they wanted to see where the sun went. So specifically, it's the Seneca tribe of the greater Iroquois. This is a Seneca legend that was related by Edward Cornplanter, and then recognized, or he was the recognized head preacher of the Gaiwu of Handsome Lake. So Edward Cornplanter of the Seneca nation or tribe, he told this story about these three brothers. Now I'm just going to cut right to the chase. In this particular section, it says, I don't know if I can share it with you. Here, I can just move the screen, right? So the brothers follow the sun. They get to where the sky meets the earth. And there's many references throughout many different religions and cultures of a place where the sky, the dome, meets the earth, right? They get to this place, which would be Antarctica. And it says that, so they were watching the sky like move. It was sort of like the firmament was like hovering, and it would like move up and down, and it would create like a space that you could go between to basically leave the earth. But if you didn't make it in time, it would crush you because it's pretty thick, right? So it says they discovered on the other side of the sky, you see that? That's the other side of the dome. Everything was different. Before them, it says, loomed a large hill. While they ascended. So they ascended this huge, the earth started to slope on the other side of this dome. They ascended this hill, and they saw a very large village in the distance. A man came running towards them. As they approached, he called out, and they go up, way up on this hill, on the other side of the dome, which is basically this Pillars of Heaven image that I was showing you, right? So these brothers go all the way up, and there's like this city up there on the top of the hill, and they're able to look down and, you know, see like the earth and stuff like that. And remember, it's going to be way different atmosphere when you're up here as opposed to lower elevations, and you're looking more of a side view through the opacity of the atmosphere and stuff. Up here, the atmosphere is real thin, so you could easily see things. Anyways, I thought that was an interesting legend from the Seneca, the legend of the three brothers who followed the sun, the Iroquois tribe. But yeah, this is the little thumbnail I made. Let me jump in the chat and see if anybody has any questions. I know that was a lot to cover. Project Ice Dome. Antarctica, obviously there's lots of stuff I haven't even talked about in Antarctica. There are military bases. There's the concept of sky ice. I'm sure a lot of you have probably come across that, right? Which I haven't even touched on, really. There's sky ice. So there's insiders who have gone to Antarctica, and they say that they followed, you know, these people that dug caves into these walls in the sides of Antarctica. And when they went back to continue digging, you know, the next day or the next week or whatever it was, all their equipment that they had left in this cave was stuck in the ice once again. Like the ice had grown and froze over, covering and enveloping their tools, their equipment, and everything. It regrew, which I believe the dome can do. I think the dome creates itself. It's self-creating. And the reason the dome, I didn't even tell you how the dome's made. Let me get back to my little thing here. I'll cover that real quick. All right, so the dome, right? It's very simple. If there's extremely low pressures, way far away from the sun, and the highest pressure is right here in the middle, the low pressure is going to create lower temperatures, right? And if the temperature gets cold enough, right, which would be this point right here, then the gases will skip from a gas state to a solid state, which is the temperature required to do this is quote unquote the temperature of space in general. So what they say is the temperature of space, -400 and something degrees, that's cold enough to freeze gas directly into ice. into its ice form, or into its solid form. Okay, so that's how the dome is created. And then the shape of the dome just conforms to the magnetic field that's pushing those gases away or repelling those gases. Right? So this is the shape of the physical dome is showing you the shape of the invisible magnetic dome. Okay? The invisible creates the physical and the visible. All right, cool. Anyways, that's how the dome is made. The dome's made out of frozen gases, basically. I think the microphone's a little too close. Sorry about that. All right, cool. Let me jump in the chat, see if anybody has any questions. I'm looking for @JayDreamerZ. If you do, let me know. I'm happy to attempt to explain anything, re-explain it, answer questions. Oh, let me fix my little screen here. Boom. There we go. That looks more normal. All right, cool. So this is what I'm looking at. This is my chat over here to the side, Scooby-Doop. And I'm going to pop that out for 5. We'll start with 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions or wants to get my attention, let me know. Phil. Oh, who is that? Hold on. Let me do Phil76. Let me fix these alerts so you guys can be recognized. Val just became... Oh, somebody just gave away 10 new JayDreamerZ memberships to the Good Vibe Tribe. That was Phil1476. Hey, high five, Phil. When Valkyries fly. Look at all these people that are getting free memberships to my channel. How cool. Also, while I wait for you guys to think of some questions or comments or whatever, go and take a look at my posts section so that you can be updated on your channel memberships. Okay. So some people, all of your channel memberships went away last night because I completely changed them. I lowered the price and just made one channel membership for $1 right here on YouTube. If you want to support me financially, which many of you have, and I've never asked, well, there was one time I did ask for support, just once in 10 years. And you guys were so helpful. It made me cry like many times. I don't even want to think about it right now because I'll start crying. But if you guys, anybody wants to continue supporting me, okay, I've made available my Patreon. I just created a huge Patreon. There's chats in there. You guys can chat with each other where you can upload pictures, themed chats and stuff. I'm going to be adding more to it. There's a lot of stuff I can do with Patreon, like, you know, special videos and posts and blogs and all kinds of stuff. But anyways, if you guys want to be on the credits and stuff, we're not going to have a credits. Well, actually, I'll play the credits today. I'll just play the old ones from last month. But I don't have a new credits because I'm waiting for people to join the Patreon for the credits tier. Okay. And like I said, the reason I did that is because YouTube takes half of your money that you're donating. So I don't mind all of these. This is $1, you know what I mean? So I just do that for you guys. You know, I just had to make it, I can't make it free. If I could make it free, I would make it free. So I just lowered it to the lowest amount, which is $1. But if you guys want to join any of like the credits and stuff to support my work, that is the best way for you to support me. If you would like to, is to go to my Patreon, jump on the credits, or you can become one of the select few that I'm going to actually be doing little classes with. I'm going to be doing like little workshops twice a month, and I'll be giving, you know, small presentations. I'll be able to answer your questions personally. We can all get to know each other. I like to look at it like my own version of the Breakfast Club, basically, because whoever signs up for that one, I'm going to, you know, we're probably going to become friends. Like, I'm going to get to know you guys pretty personally. So that'll be fun. That'll be a good time. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. And it'll just be everybody. So everyone that joins that particular tier, there's only 9 seats available. And, you know, you can do it for just 1 month and just come to 2 sessions or whatever and let someone else have your seat or whatever. But yeah, that should be a lot of fun. Anyways, let me jump in the chat. Let me pop out my chat here and see if we have any questions or comments. Now, usually I'm pretty good about building bridges from my theories that I'm thinking of, you know, between what people might see as fantasy and just crazy conspiracies and stuff to actual science and to logic and things that make reasonable sense, you know, at least how they're presented. So hopefully I've done a decent job of explaining that. I know I kind of tripped over my words a bit and rambled a couple times there. Let's see. I'm jumping into the chat, and congratulations to everybody that just got welcomed into the Good Vibe Tribe. LB, remember, try to type in @JayDreamerZ because it will highlight and I'll see your comment. But I did see LB3D says Flat Earther just showed up. Does it seem likely to you that Flat Earth, the final experiment, was fake? No, it doesn't at all. I think it seems real to me. Like I just said, I have this model where I explained how it could actually be, how it could work on the quote unquote flat Earth map or whatever, right? So they would be up here. The zenith of their sky is this direction, and they just watch the sun go in a circle right above them, just like that. So I don't think that was fake. And, you know, I've spoken with Jaren, I've spoken with Austin in the past, and I don't, man, I feel like my heart hurts for Jaren, honestly, because I always thought he was a laid back dude, and I still see him as that, but I can feel his heartbreak through all of the negativity. That's why I hope you guys have been cool in the chat. I'm pretty sure everybody has. But I can feel his heartbreak. Like so many people with like cult-like mentalities. And that's not to say, like, I wouldn't make the mistake of just being jaded by my local flat earthers, which is in our algorithms. Like, we all have our own little circles of algorithms and communities that they stick us in. You know what I mean? You know, like specifically like within our language barriers and continents and nations and stuff like that, right? So each of us has our own little truth-seeking community that we're used to seeing. His community, that his algorithm they stuck him in, and his circles really bit his head off, man. And I feel like that just broke his heart. That was the last straw for him. And man, I've been there. I have been there. Like I'm so sensitive. I don't even like to read the comments, you know, like, cause I'm scared I might come across a bad one and it'll upset me or something. So I feel bad for those guys. You know, they seem jaded to me. Like they're just really pissed off at all the mean people out there that are just so angry that they, you know, it's like a sports team. It's like if your favorite player switched teams and then you just hate that player. You know, like if Michael Jordan went to go play for the Lakers or whatever, you know, all of a sudden all the Jordan fans that were used to him being on the Bulls would be like, you suck, Michael Jordan, you're the worst, you know? And that's kind of like the backlash that they got. When in reality, they just changed their worldview. Sweet. Like, that doesn't affect me at all. I respect other people's paths, you know? I don't like modern academics in general because they don't respect the paths of others. They'll create Wikipedia articles. They'll tell you that these other belief systems and these other worldviews are wrong. They become academic bullies. And I don't support any of that crap. I don't like it. Anyways, let me jump back in the chat. Let's see. We got... Oh, Val, thank you so much for your donation. That was super kind of you. Says, keep it up. Zedrin Bing says, JayDreamerZ, what do you think about Earth map reflection on the moon? Oh, all right, let's go. Let me go back to my little reference drawing. All right, so the moon map, that's a good question. Oh, snap, hold on. I moved something I shouldn't have. Don't touch that. You never know what it might be attached to. Okay, so let's take this. This is, for me, this up here, the apex dome, this is what causes the moon. This is what projects the moon into our sky. So this area up here projects the moon into the sky, okay? Now, when people look at the moon, they're seeing a projection of the actual firmament above us. Now, the reality between the whole reflection idea of reflecting the ground below us, right? Obviously, the sun is casting some light, which will naturally reflect back up, right? So you would get a slight reflection, okay? A faint one. And that would be reflected even fainter in what we see as the moon up in our sky. However, whenever the beams of light shoot up, the ionized beams of light from the zephyrs and the inner Earth atmosphere depressurizing, that will light up the firmament. And therefore, it will reflect the world below it even better. So this will act as a reflector, and cartographers across the world will be able to draw the world and, you know, make maps of the Earth and atlases and stuff like that. All right, cool. Let me jump back in the chat. I'm just going to go with whoever I see next. I'm trying to catch up. Sorry. Yeah, Jay Owens says, can I explain what the deadlights might be? Yeah, I totally have a theory on that. So I believe that whenever people look up at this, which is going to open, this will become the mouth of Kronos, the sky god, and you'll see 3 lights. Okay. I think that those lights, either there's 3 lights above or 3 plasma conduits that are spiraling down. That's a possibility. My second possibility is also that there is an anode and a cathode plasma volcano on either side of Mount Meru, and that it's reflected in Kronos above, or the firmament above us, and people see these 3 lights in the sky, like 3 suns or 3 moons or whatever. All right, next up, Doctor Who says, do you believe the beam sends you up from Meru if you go north? Or second, this theory, should we all, I don't really like compound questions, Doctor Who. If you go up to the north and you jump into the blue beam and it's cold plasma, as I suppose, it's a Zephyr. So yes, it should send you flying or floating up to the apex dome, where you could just turn right around and just land normally. Like that would be like normal land up there, right? All right. Next up, we got Sola Kurana, who says, JayDreamerZ, thank you for your work. Do you think the local holy sites are to keep humanity from realizing that they are one and keep them divided on artificial grounds? No, I believe, if I understand your question correctly, I think that holy sites are set apart sites, that they're places of power, earthly, terrestrial places of power, both where, you know, the ley lines and dragon lines meet and stuff like that, but also where energy rises up from inside of the earth. I think that those are where holy sites are constructed. So those people can contain that power and keep it, you know, make healing centers and stuff for themselves and their families. Zedrin Being says, what do you think about the Earth map? Okay, I think I just already did that one. In the Ancient Now says, are you going to have a JayDreamerZ music and meditation festival? Nope, totally not. Russell Gregory says, JayDreamerZ, what's your Patreon? I think it's just patreon.com/JayDreamerZ. I don't know. Let me try that. Patreon.com/JayDreamerZ. Yep, that works. That totally works. All right, cool. Let me get back to the chat. Let's see. We got Kimberly. Thank you for helping out in the chat. We got Boston, Miami, New York City says, I agree. Wouldn't it make sense that we would have a frozen dome because space is so cold? Totally, yeah. The gases move upward, they freeze, boom, dome, right? Super simple. All right, Sloan. What's up, Sloan? Always reminds me of Ferris Bueller. Sloan Pierce says, JayDreamerZ, why do stars shine through the moon? Because the moon is a projection. It's just a luminary, it's just a light, right? So whenever you see like the dark side of the moon, that's just a lack of light. It's not a solid object that has a shadow or whatever. It's just dimmer light. And so because there are lights behind that, the moon is lower than the stars, right? You'll be able to see the stars through the moon. All right. And why do the stars look so funny? I think that has to do with the atmosphere, the fluid of the atmosphere, and the fluid of the actual possible waters above. All right, Jason, I think I saw Jason Leisure. Yeah, it says, I'm conceptualizing your explanation for the 24-hour sun, and it is a better one than we are given. Wouldn't the sun make a line pattern or an oval from that perspective? Hey, what's up, Tommy? I don't know. That's a possibility. I'm not sure. So this is just off the top of my dome and a theory that I have, and I encourage you guys to build upon it, you know, research it, push the boundaries of it. I'm just giving you guys like a foundation to go off of, but I see what you're saying. Like, would it make an oval? I don't think it would make an oval. I think it's just oval shaped in my drawing just because of the perspective that we're looking at from the side. But in reality, it's a circle. So it would go way out to the sides. I don't know. I'm not sure. That's a good question though. So give that some thought. Let's see. Doctor Who says, when the bubble pops, do you reckon the suction leads to the air pocket in the middle of the realm or the hole of the apex? Oh, the hole in the apex for sure. Consider those on the dome with your answer. Compound it. Yeah, people on the dome are going to get sucked right out. If there is a civilization up here, which I believe there is actually. Possibly on the other side though. They possibly actually live on like the top of the dome up here. But yeah, if that's, even if they lived on the top, when this part of the dome breaks open, there's going to be a huge depressurization and all those winds are going to get sucked up and out. This will no longer be the center point where all the pressure is. Okay, everything's going to move towards that hole in the closed system, which will now be an open system momentarily, right? So if you live on the top of the dome up here, you're going to watch a tornado and, you know, a type of tornado or whatever, crap all over the place, just flying out of it, and then debris, you know, landing on the other sides or whatever. If you're upside down and you're underneath, you'll probably get sucked out, is what I'm assuming. Get sucked right out. But this whole portion falls, actually. So this whole portion, I don't talk about this a lot because I'm still piecing together, you know, my own theories. I don't like to just, I don't know, sometimes I come right out and I'm like, hey, here's what I just thought of. But usually that's not the case. Usually I try to meditate on things, even if I'm really excited about them. But if I do come right out, I'll just let you know, hey, this is purely a theory, purely an idea, speculation, what if, and let's suppose, and let's do a thought experiment, okay? As I am today. Although this concept is one I've been thinking about for quite some time, which is the pillars of the heavens, right? And the earth sloping and moving upwards towards its extremities. But yeah, anyways, Apex Dome, Doctor Who. Oh, that part breaks off. So this whole dome part will break off. And every other cycle, it'll either smash into the earth and break into icebergs and stuff, or it'll get caught and it'll actually hover right above Mount Meru. But that's still something I'm kind of working out the physics on. All right, let's continue on. We'll do a few more questions here. True Earth Whisperer says, JayDreamerZ, love, truth, and freedom in all directions. Right back to you. High five. Courtney's Fellowship, what's up? Good to see you. Zedrin says, JayDreamerZ, does Terra Infinita, that just means infinite Earth, world model seem legit according to your theory? I see some truth to that, but I don't believe that off to the sides, like over here, that the Earth extends infinitely. Okay, there might be like more land down here or whatever, or possibly more realistically, right at the edge, it would extend that way. Okay, like we actually live in a crater. Not that there's like a horn shape, although there could be. Like let's look back at this original Hebrew model, right? Where is it? If you look at this, you can see at the edges up here, it bows outward and then comes back in just like that, right? Now this is starting to get more into the fractal verse and the greater cosmos around our world and what's out there, right? My personal view of the Earth is not that it's a disk. I don't like that people put a disk in space or include the concepts of modern academics or anything like that. I think you should just stick to the local area. And like, for example, this right here, you don't see stars in the background. You don't see space or anything like that, right? This bottom part, they have no idea. So they're not going to speculate. They're not going to cut it off and be like, that's the bottom. That's it. There's nothing else, right? Because that's as far as they can go. It might as well just start fading out right here. It might as well just start blurring out. But me, personally, I believe that this right here connects and that this other side over here also connects and that they act as roots, like a root system, and that those roots lead to other worlds like a mycelial network, like mushrooms and their roots all interconnect, and that there's other worlds, not just off to the periphery, not just off to the sides, but everywhere, even going up, even going off to the sides and stuff, like neurons in the mind of God. That's how I see that. All right, cool. Let's do a couple more. Let's see what we got. Where do I think the safest place in the world is to survive the plasma apocalypse? Pakistan? No. Mountains? No. Tunnels? No. Caves? No. The safest place in the world is... there is no safest place. But if I had to guess, I would say being in Mount Meru. That's my best guess. Okay, that's my best guess. Jesus says to build your house upon solid rock. I'd say that's a huge clue. Okay, listen to Jesus. Let's see, Tommy, what's up, bro? What you doing? The safest place is Colorado, where Jay is probably. He doesn't want everybody coming here Yes, this is a pretty damn, it's not bad. If you read the Adam and Eve Project, it definitely says the lee side of Pikes Peak, which I live right next to. So yeah, I don't want to flood the whole area with people though. Just like I don't want everybody to go to the Garden of Eden. I just want the good people. Let's see. I hope you look at the Vibes of Cosmos map. Yes, I get that all the time. I have looked at it many times. Thank you very much. Let's see. What else we got? Anything? Ultimately, I would just, if you're worried about survival, I would worry about just being the utmost best person that you can be. Okay? Because personally, I don't want any of you to survive if you're bad. If you're evil, if you're corrupt, if you're base, if you have any residue of that, I'm not wishing you well. No offense, okay? I'm wishing well the Good Vibe Tribe. I'm wishing well those who have a seed of the tree of life inside of us, right? We may have made mistakes, right? We're not perfect or whatever, but the spirit inside is good. If the spirit inside is corrupt, I don't want anybody making it to the Garden of Eden. I don't want them surviving the apocalypse. No way. I support the apocalypse. I'm like that wolf in the Neverending Story. And I'm like Atreyu. I'm all those characters all wrapped up in one. Like I'm helping that bad boy. I want the apocalypse to come. All right, what else? I can understand if you don't. I know it's a scary topic. I know, there's a lot of people who are not going to make it and stuff. I get that. But, it's been a long time. People have had their fun. They've had their play. And it's time to switch power. It's time to change the charge. Benjamin Anthony says, sorry if you answered this already. That's okay. I'm at work. I'm trying to listen. Do you think it's possible anyone could have ever hidden in those walls or corners of the crater like in Hebrew cosmology? I do. I do believe that there's always anomalies and exceptions. I think that there are cave systems that link Antarctica or those pillars of heaven down into Sheol and actually meet back into the North Pole. And this is described in the book The Smoky God, which I don't believe is fiction at all. And it says that whenever they left the hollow earth and they went in through the North Pole, they came out in Antarctica. So that to me gives credence to the answer to your question. All right, let's see. All right, that's about it. Sweet. So I'm going to wrap things up. Leave some comments with your thoughts, especially if you didn't catch the live stream and you're not in the chat right now. Go check out my Patreon. I would appreciate it. I made a little video for you guys in the About section. I was very nervous. Okay, I'm still very nervous because whenever I changed all the memberships, I lost all those memberships. So that was a huge chunk of money that I just took a gamble on and lost. So I'm crossing my fingers. I'm trying to have faith, the Good Vibe Tribe is there, and but we'll see what happens. I make a little bit of money from the ads on YouTube, which I've pumped up a little bit lately just in case as a cushion, because I don't know if people are going to join the Patreon. I'm scared. I was scared. I'm trying not to be scared. I'm trying to be confident and all that stuff, but I don't know. It's risky, but it's much better than YouTube taking 40% of everything you guys donate to me. Anyways, go check it out. Jump in the chat, say what's up. I'll be jumping in the chat over on Patreon more and more often, especially in the members chats. I'm going to be sharing lots of pictures. I'm going to be uploading all of the pictures on my computer pertaining to like all the ancient maps and the different subject matter. I'm going to be posting stuff in there. You guys can ask questions, and if I see them, I'll get to them and stuff. But that's the show for today. So thank you so much. Another cool thing about Patreon is it recommends people who are in my little conspiracy circle too. So like JT follows JC, he's got one on there, and I haven't figured out how to recommend these people or whatever, but like if you search, I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate Patreon, honestly. But it keeps us all together in like this little community, which I think is really cool. So I just shout out to Understanding Conspiracy. He like recommended me somehow to his people, and it gave me a notification that he did, and I thought that was cool. And I'll be recommending other people too. Anyways, I love you guys. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
But something's forcing me to stay. It'd be easier on me if I turn away to flee. But there's something holding on in the way of being long gone. There's so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Find so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up.
It was good.
I'll try so hard
That's
to
I
fade
think the people like it. No one seems to really enjoy it.
but something's forcing me to stay. It'd be easier for me if I turn away to flee. But there's something holding on in the way of being long.
Do you remember what movie is it that you watched today?
There's so many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Far too many ways to escape, but I guess it's time to wake up, time to wake up. Time to wake up, time to wake up.